Welcome to the newest episode. In this episode, we're looking at the brazen serpent. And you're probably wondering, what on earth does a serpent have to do with Easter? Well, I got news for you. Let's get ready for it. You're gonna have a great time with this. Let's just get into it. So as you can see, I'm trying to get the picture of that's Moses in the Bible, holding up the pole with the sculpted serpent on top of it. And as is my custom, I draw the forms of the figures first before I ink the layers. So initially I was going to make it just a simple pole, but I thought, hey, well, it's a picture representing something Jesus was going to do, right? So why not just go ahead and make it a cross? So that's what I did. Then I drew the characters in the foreground and then those in the background. So just a little heads up, this is the story behind it. So the Israelites, they'd been rescued from Egypt. Remember the story of the Exodus? They were in the wilderness on the way to the promised land, and they were wandering in the desert, the wilderness rather, for a while. And they started complaining to Moses about the food they were eating, about the situations they were in, and they were complaining basically. And the Bible lets us know that complaining is a sin. It's a sign of ingratitude rather, ungratefulness, lack of gratitude. It means they were not grateful, basically, and God was not pleased. So they were punished, and snakes went through the camp biting the Israelites. So the Israelites cried out to the Lord that, Lord, we're sorry, we've sinned against you, how can we get out of this? And the Lord told Moses to make a bronze serpent and put it on a staff and raise it up, and anybody that looks up to it would live, would be saved, and would not die. So this is a very interesting symbol, an interesting picture. Jesus referred to this story when he was talking about it, that just as Moses raised the serpent on the pole, so will the Son of Man, that's Jesus, need to be raised up, and anyone who looks upon him be saved. It was a picture of Jesus being crucified. He was raised up on a cross, like the staff, but it wasn't just people looking at him physically. It's a picture of trusting in him for life. Just like it says, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Anyone who looks to him for salvation, not to self, not to their experiences or to their strength, will be saved. Some people say that this story of the bronze serpent was an example of exposure therapy, that we overcome our fears by looking at our fears and staring them in the face. Well, this was supernatural. God allowed it to be that just by looking at this, they were healed of their sickness. But the snake itself was not supposed to be the object of their worship. And the Bible lets us know that decades later, the Israelites started worshipping that serpent. But one of the kings who feared God destroyed that serpent, the image of the serpent, because the serpent was never the focus. It was the fact that God used it as a picture to rescue them and to save them. It's also an interesting sign of God overcoming the evil one, taking his symbology and using it for salvation. Remember, mankind entered into sin through the temptation of a serpent, and God used the image of a serpent to represent his salvation, just like what he would do when Jesus would come, and through his death he would rescue us from the power of sin and death, using death to defeat death, right? So the serpent was never the focus, God was. And that's what the story of the bronze serpent tells us. It encourages us to trust in God, to look to Jesus and live. Look and live. So on the artwork, yes, I followed the same process I've been using all along, following the background to set the mood, the blue sky, and the brown earth beneath. I colored the staff brown, and the bronze serpent I used a shade of yellow that makes it stand out. If you look at the artwork from the beginning, the focus lines draw attention to the staff. In fact, at a point I needed to extend the canvas so that the staff takes in more space for the eye, as we'll see in the final image. So yeah, my cheat code for drawing crowds, I did it again, putting a scuffle in the background and drawing figure showing the eyes as white dots. So here I used guidelines to see how to draw attention to the staff. I used the clouds to do that. So the clouds, while they're in the air, it looks as if they are projecting from the image, and then there's white in the horizon, showing that there's distance between us and what's in the background. And then I started working on the shadows again, using a shade of black and reducing the the opacity so that it is a little more transparent and becomes like a shadow. The young man that is standing there in brown, that's supposed to be Joshua. Joshua was Moses' protege, so I'd like to believe that in this story, he wasn't one of the complainers. He was likely one of the people trying to calm the crowd down and to get people to look to the serpent. So that's him supporting Moses. So you can see the shadows are trying to show that light is coming from the image. Of course, we know it's just a symbol. God's intention was never for us to worship the image. The whole story was a picture of the fact that Jesus was coming to bring salvation. And when we look to him, we would live. But it's just a reminder that what is happening in salvation or in Easter, it was never going to be by our own power. We could never cure ourselves from the sickness of sin. Sin is terrible. Everything from the scapegoat to the door to this is to let us understand that sin has consequences. God wanted us to get that picture, that sin is a problem and we needed help. We need his help. And that's what Jesus came to be, to give us salvation and to rescue us from the sickness of sin, the scourge of sin and death. Thank you for watching this story of the brazen serpent. As always, this image is available at my art website, artofemmanuelonimisi.wordpress.com. Thank you for joining us today, and see you tomorrow for the next installment on the Easter journey.